In a world filled with challenges and opportunities, it's not just about having big dreams, it's about having the right approach to turn those dreams into reality. Whether you're navigating the competitive landscape of business or seeking personal growth, it's all about the approach.
Welcome, everybody, to our second episode of The Approach. I am Dr. Davis McAllister, and I am extremely excited about our guest today. And her name is Jen McAllister, no relation and different spelling, even though probably somewhere along the way in the genealogy going back, there's some connection there, but we don't know what it is at this point. A little bit about Jen. She is the fearless leader of Rise CPA and Accountants. She graduated with a BA in business management, and a few years later decided to get a BA in accounting. And then while her family was growing, she fought through and worked on the weekends and got her MBA, and then had months to prepare and try to take her CPA exams. So she is also the host for Just Figure It Out, a podcast, which I happened to be on a couple of weeks ago, and was excited to be able to have her come on to my show as well. She has worked with a variety of businesses, from e-commerce, reclamation, technology, retail, government, dairy farming. She's passionate about helping others rise up, including the team of wonderful, strong, smart women, respected clients, and she hopes to be able to help other women rise to their potential. Please welcome Jen McAllister.
Hello. Thank you, Dr. McAllister. I'm excited to be on your show. And when you were doing that intro and you talked about a dairy farmer, I want to make it known that I did the accounting for a dairy farming company. I have never been a dairy farmer.
Oh, wow. No.
Make it a little more interesting.
Yeah, it was funny. I think I shared this with you, but my dad was an accountant, and he did the books for a catfish farm. And so they used to pay us in catfish. So
like we're back in the 1700s.
Yeah. So, I went through your bio, but tell us who Jen McAllister is. Where did she come from? How did she get where she's at? Kind of let us know who you are.
Absolutely. So as it relates to accounting and why did I decide to be an accountant? Well, I've always been good at math, and I had this perception that if you're good at math, then that equals being an accountant. And it really isn't. I say that accounting is more about organization. And the way that I tell my kids and others what my job is, I say it's like putting together a puzzle. You know, there's a missing pieces, and it's our job to find those missing pieces, put them together so it fills in the entire puzzle. So I do puzzles all day. That's my job.
Yeah. That's great. I look at the same way with, because I work in healthcare, everybody that walks in the door, it's a different puzzle. It's a different, problem that you have to solve, and very much the same way. So, where anything in your background, anything that really,
I'm going to say
that direction.
Yeah, hats off to great teachers. So I was a senior in high school, and there was a particular teacher, Mrs. Strasberg, and she was the accounting teacher, and it was a year-long class for college credit. And I thought, what the heck? I like math. I would love to get cheaper college credits. So sure, let's sign up for this accounting class. And she was quite the character. She loved accounting, which is really weird. She had a personality, which is also pretty weird when it comes to accountants. And she just loved the material. And she would create stories about debits and credits that I will never forget, because she was just quirky, but I absolutely loved her. And that's where it began. After that year of the college credit in high school, I just knew that I could do this. And so I went immediately into college, went through the classes, got my degree. I actually got a degree with a minor in accounting, and I was working at a job. And long story short, I was almost let go after a couple of months. My boss came to me and he said, we're going to have to let you go. And this is, 15, 20 years ago, probably 20 years ago. And he said, I thought you had, your major was in accounting, but it's your minor. And so your skill set isn't what we need, and I'm going to have to let you go. And I sat there for a minute and I said, no, let's do this differently. I'll keep my job. You can pay me what you think I'm worth. And then I'll go back to school and I'll get my bachelor's with a major in accounting. And once I accomplish that, then you can bring me back to the original salary that you hired me at. And obviously no one would expect that. And so he said, okay. And I worked for that company for the next 7 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's one
Yeah.
of those things you can't hit if you don't swing. So
Right.
yeah.
So yeah, I really tell people, don't take no for an answer.
Mhm.
You know, you have the ability to say, hey, how about we look at this a different way? So along the road, and that company was paying for my education, and I feel like it's kind of like a habit to be in school. It's hard to be out of school and then get back into school. So I thought, hey, I'm on this roll. I would really love to not work as much, because at this time I had 3 young children. And I thought I would really rather work half time and make the same amount of money by becoming a CPA.
Yeah.
So I did just that. And I look back and I think I didn't have the time or the energy to do that, but yet I did it. And I think that really says a lot about when you're really clear on your goals and you know that's what you want, which is really talking about my podcast now, you know, just figure it out. And I knew I wanted to become a CPA. I knew I wanted to be more of a stay-at-home mom and continue to be able to pay the bills. And so I just figured it out.
Yeah.
And, you know, I remember that some of the different things that I had to do to make this work. A little bit embarrassing, but you do what you've got to do. And I remember I had a full-time job. I had a full-time family. And I had a full plate of classes for the MBA program, which is what I was doing in order to qualify for the CPA. And I remember I would get to work 7 a.m, dead tired because I had been up studying. And I would come in, and on my 15-minute breaks that they allow you in a corporate job, I would climb underneath my desk, lay down, and I would be out in an instant. And I would tell my fellow lady workers, like, okay, keep an eye out. Like if somebody comes in, just say, you know, she stepped away for a minute. And I would just crawl under my desk and fall asleep. And just an example of you've just got to figure out what you need to do to get by. And I did that. And eventually I did become a CPA. And that was a struggle in and of itself, with another slew of life's lessons.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously you had to go through a good bit of, you know, resiliency to be able to overcome adversity and those things. That's one of the things that I talk about on the leadership aspect is developing resiliency. Was there anything in your past that you felt like contributed to that sense of resiliency, or was this a kind of a new development for you that you just put together and just said, you know what, I just got to make it happen? How did that come about?
You know, I've thought about that oftentimes, and I can't think of a specific time in my life. I feel like maybe it was a personality trait that's been developed, which a lot of it is, if somebody tells me that I can't do something, then I just want to do that more, and not in a rebellious way where someone says, you know, don't touch the fire, and I want to touch the fire. That's not what I'm talking about. But if someone doubts me, that really gives me the fire. And one of my earliest memories is, as I think I must have been 8 years old, maybe 9, and I was taking my piano lessons, and my piano teacher said, what is the next song that you want to learn? And so I brought a full-on Mozart, you know, not dumbed down, but a Mozart piece called Für Elise. And I brought that to her, and she said, oh, kind of like, well, that's cute, but Jen, you're not ready for that yet. And because she said that, that kind of sparked some defiance in me. And so I worked harder than anyone. And I not only learned it, but I memorized the whole piece, because I was just so motivated to prove her wrong.
Yeah.
And maybe that's where it started.
Yeah.
And time again, when someone will tell me I can't do something, then I'm going to do it better than they ever thought I could.
We were kindred spirit in that, because I'm very much the same way. And One of the things that I've talked about is, you have success for survival, which a lot of us have been through that, have had to, be successful just because there wasn't any other option. But then you have that, I call it success for rebellion, but it's from the standpoint of, I'm going to succeed because you told me I can't. And it's very much that same mindset. So that's great that you have that spirit in you, and that it's definitely made you successful along the way. So
thank you. And I would like to share my CPA journey, because again, lots of life's journeys or life's lessons. And so I had a 2-year period to pass the 4 exams, and they are so draining. You study for months, you take the test, and then it's quite a few weeks, unless things have changed in the last 8 years. You wait a few weeks to hear that you have passed or you have failed. And so it's this waiting game, and you don't know, should I study for the next one, or should I be studying again to retake this? And so it was a mixture of failing some and passing some. And I got to my last exam. I saved the worst for last, and I had failed it twice in a row. And I'm pretty in control of my emotions, but I remember shutting the door and telling the family, you're just going to have to leave me alone for the rest of the night. And I just went in there and I sobbed. And you have these thoughts of self-doubt, like, maybe I'm not smart enough. Maybe I just need to give up. This isn't for me. And I was just on the brink of giving up. And then, thoughts of my children and what kind of an example that I was giving to them. And I wanted to be able to show them that you never give up. You put in every ounce of effort that you possibly can, and you can get knocked down over and over again. And you've got to just pick yourself back up and try again. And so thankfully, I had my children to be able to have that last ounce of motivation that I needed to try that test a 3rd time. Grueling. And I passed.
That's great.
And became a CPA. Lived happily ever after.
That's awesome. How did the home life balance, how was that affected? I mean, obviously you're not able to it's so difficult when you're having to shift energy and focus on different directions. You're working, you're going to school, you've got, kids at home, a husband, all those things. If there was some advice that, or something that you could give somebody that was a key as to what helped you as far as that balance is concerned, what would it be?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that if you're in the room with someone, especially family members, and you're really not present, it doesn't matter how much time that you're spending with them. They feel it, they know it. And so a better solution for me was to be very intentional with that time, really, pay attention, listen, and also that it's not on my timeline. My kids were young, and kids don't know how to just wait to tell you that story that's really important to them, until 9 o'clock at night. So I was very intentional about, feeling them out. And if they had something to tell me, then my studying could absolutely wait. And I've always made sure that family is first. Now, does that mean that they got all the time they needed from me or desired? Probably not. But when they needed me, I was there.
Yeah. So definitely quality over quantity necessarily.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this brings me into this. So, you've talked about, your journey to, becoming a CPA, and then you worked for the other company for 7 years. What did you do after that 7 years? Did you go straight into opening up your own firm? What did you do from there?
Yeah, great question. So I was able to start working for, there were some little jobs in between. People would reach out to me, hey, could you do this? And I was juggling multiple small clients, but there was this one in particular, and they started to grow rapidly. And so I was willing to let go of all of my clients and put all of my time into this particular corporation. So I was the first accountant. And as they grew over the course of the next 5 years, I was able to handpick, nurture, develop a team of accountants. And I really have always had this motherly instinct. And I wanted to make sure that people were happy, satisfied, they felt supported, all the things that, a great mother might do.
Yeah.
And so as this company grew, I grew it to a team of 18. And then out of the blue, I got a call one day and they said, you don't have a job anymore. And I was absolutely blindsided because I had grown this company, the accounting department, and I also had been guaranteed a large sum of money when they went public. And so I was putting in 10, 11, 12-hour days thinking it's okay, it's going to be worth it. And then in 2 to 3 years after they sell, then I can use this money and I'll start my company. So pausing right there before ending the story, one of the things that I learned from that, and I'll tell anybody, is, you can put in hard work at your corporate job and you should prove yourself worthy, and you go after the promotions and all of the things, but you should absolutely positively guard your time. And really, you don't realize that you are allowing your boss or your superior to tell you what hours that you should work. You have the power to say, I'll get to that tomorrow morning, or leave your laptop at work so you can't possibly be answering emails at 9 or 10 at night. So that's the bit of advice I learned, is you think you're being really loyal and they appreciate it so much. But at the end of the day, sorry, but most corporations, they really just don't care. It's about the bottom line, and you'd like to tell yourself differently, but it's rare. It can happen, but it's rare that you're something special to them.
Yeah, I saw it posted recently. It said that if you were to die today, within 24 hours your job would be posted.
Yeah,
and it's true.
yes,
The days of I remember my grandfather and had some older uncles and that worked for companies that, they were dedicated to those companies. The companies took care of them and they appreciated dedication. And in today's world, you don't see that a whole lot. It's more, everything is, unfortunately, it's been labeled now as corporate structure. Is, you're a number.
yeah.
And
And it's reality, and I don't like to dwell in negativity. And so again, I would say work really hard, do your best, and really contribute to whatever job and corporation you're working in, and have a good time and enjoy the people around you and all the positive things. But at the end of the day, make it the end of your day and spend time with your family, your friends, and yourself.
Yeah.
Period.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, I got this call on a Thursday and absolutely blindsided. So that Thursday evening, I went to bed, couldn't sleep, obviously. And I had already had in my mind that I was going to start a business in 2 or 3 or 4 years. And so the seed had already been planted. So I thought, okay, well, forget about the 2-year plan. Let's turn this into a 2-day plan. And so when I woke the next morning, I knew that the name of the company would be Rise. It wasn't a choice like, oh, I like this and I like this, but it was just as clear as day, because Rise embodies everything that is true to me. And that's rising from your circumstances, helping those around you rise, your teammates, your clients, and people that you don't even know. It's just all about rising. And so immediately that was the name. So I registered the name with the IRS, with the state, and then over the weekend created a website, which I had never done before. And Monday, doors were open and I was a business. And 3 of the women who worked for me at that prior company, they were like, okay, let us know when you're ready for us and we're going to follow you. And they did. And they currently work for me, as well as 3 more wonderful women.
That's great. So how long did it take before you were able to start scaling like that and start bringing more people on?
Yeah, this is a story of faith, and faith in yourself and faith in general. And I had to get a few clients for myself to pay my own bills. And then I remember saying to Sarah, Sarah, imagine yourself putting your 2 weeks notice in next week. And so, you kind of have to it's a big deal. She had a full-time job with benefits, and it's a really big leap. And so first you've got to imagine it, you've got to visualize it. And then she did. And then we knew what we had to do. And sometimes when there is no choice, and you figure out a way to do it. And so once she put in her 2 weeks, we did not have any clients, additional clients for her. But then during the next 2 weeks, we did. And I would say almost rinse and repeat. The second gal that followed, same thing, like, okay, put your 2 weeks notice in, and then we will get those clients. And that's what we did over and over again.
So it sounds like, one of my favorite authors is John Maxwell, and he has a book called The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And he talks about the law of capacity. And, with capacity, essentially what you were doing is you were increasing your capacity and making room for more, for more clients to come in. Was that something you were aware of, or that concept that you were aware of at the time? Or is it something that became a realization later on, that's how that worked?
Yeah, I think it goes along with the personality, which is the direct connection to my podcast, Just Figure It Out, which is, look, this is what we want. We want you to work here in 2 weeks, and we want you to have clients. And so very clear goal, and then just figure it out. And if that means we reached out to a handful of people, potential clients, and nobody was interested, then we're going to work twice as hard and 3 times as hard. And we just keep going, and we just keep figuring it out, because again, it's such a clear goal that we know we have no other choice but to reach that goal.
Yeah. So that kind of leads into, I have my 3 big questions that I ask. And so the first one I want to ask then is, I'm going to kind of switch the order up a little bit, because really what you're alluding to is the leadership that goes into it. So, you're talking about the goals and all those things. What is your overall approach when it comes to leadership, and how has that changed from the time that you started to where you're at now?
Great question. I really believe in empowering the women on my team to be able to make the decisions that they need to, and with my support. So what I'll tell everyone is, you've got a question. You don't know what the answer is. First, I want you to come up with a solution. And then I want you to bring that solution to me, knowing that it might not be the right one, but the fact that you are stretching and you're thinking and you're trying, and you bring that to me, and then we can talk it over and say, yeah, that's a great solution, or let's tweak it a little bit. But there's so much growth in being able to try to find the solutions yourself, and then having someone say, yeah, that's great, or maybe tweak it a bit. So that's been really great. My women are just amazing. They rarely need me. And sometimes I like that. And sometimes I'm like, but hey, like, you got to need me. So, yeah, but they're really intelligent women.
That's great. So is there something that is unique to your job field, your industry, that you feel like requires a slightly different approach than it would take, some of the other industries or even other clients that you work with? You work with clients in different industries. What is something that you feel like is a unique approach to what you do?
Well, I'll answer that a little bit different. Is I felt like CPAs, in the sense of those that prepare your taxes, and accountants kind of had the same mindset. And now that I've been in it, doing it myself, I realize that we're really 2 unique people, and each has their set of strengths. And I really feel like the traditional CPA that prepares your taxes is transactional, really, here, give me the information, let me file your taxes, and here you go. And I'm not downplaying that, because we need our tax preparers. And there are some really good ones that will be able to, find tax breaks for you. And that's fantastic too. But what I quickly realized makes my firm so different from not only other accounting firms, but different from tax preparers is we have a genuine interest in the day-to-day, well, I'm going to say the day-to-day, the week-to-week or the month-to-month of our clients. So we're interested in teaching them how to understand their financial statements. I don't think people take the time to say, hey, I know you're not an accountant, so let me tell you how to read these without making you feel inadequate. Really that respect that you're teaching them how to understand, how to make better decisions based on those financial statements. Because I think it's far too common that it's just kind of thrown back at you, transactional. So that is definitely what is unique to us is we like to tell our clients to consider us a partner in your business because we're looking out for the big picture and we want to really help you rise.
Mm-hmm. So what would be an approach that you would take? I mean, what type of problems, issues do you run into, and what's your approach to solving those problems?
Yeah, I would say that most of our clients, they don't have great processes in place and they don't understand how just having sister, mother, wife do the accounting, how that really affects things. Anyone can record a check, record a payment from a customer, and they think like, oh, that's done. Our accounting is done. But what they're really missing is that financial statement that tells a story. And when, garbage in, garbage out, you're just looking at these financials that mean nothing and they're usually wrong. So we really love to educate, I would say. At the end of the day, it's about educating and creating faster processes, more efficient, and just really taking the weight off of a business owner by way of taking the accounting off their plate, but really taking the confusion of what are all these numbers and what do they mean? So yeah, really just love to take the weight off of a business owner's shoulders.
That's great. So what advice would you give somebody that, if they're looking for you, if they want to come, to you to get your services, and her contact information, Jen's contact information is in the comments, and we'll have it on our post as well. But what advice would you give somebody before they come to you? What would you want them have ready for you?
They really don't have to come prepared for the initial conversation because with that conversation, I'm able to say, we could really help you. We can't help you. This person would be better suitable for you. And so it's really a customized deep dive into where are you now? Where are the holes? And then I just love to be able to sometimes even say, the person that you've got doing this for you right now, they're doing a great job. Continue with them. And so it's never about just trying to get more business, but I really like people to have the right fit for their business.
So have you ever turned a client away or?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And really, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, just how often do you feel like that happens?
So it's really more about the client choosing not to go with us because of the way I lay it out. For example, if someone said, well, we're used to paying, half the price of what you're offering right now, then I'll say, well, what are your intentions? Do you want just transactions recorded, or do you want to understand your financials? And sometimes people say, I really don't care. I just want to be able to make the tax guy happy. And I want to, just file my taxes at the end of the year. And then that's when I'll say, that's great. And we wouldn't be the right fit for you because we like to educate and we want you to want to understand your financials and want to know how to do better. So that would be an example of I guess, in a sense, turning someone away.
Yeah.
I also want to say that when you start a new business, we mostly have this mentality that we need to accept everybody. And going back in time, I probably would have done the same thing again. And you just say, oh, sure, I'll take you and you and you. And work yourself into the ground. But then after a period of time, you start to be able to say, okay, I've got enough clients. Now, which ones are sucking me dry and which ones are really flourishing with us?
Yeah.
And when that happens, it's kind of hard to have to say, someone, you should probably go with someone else. But the small handful of times that's happened, it's been a really good handoff. Like, this person would probably be better for you. And then I do an introduction and pass it off. So I don't ever just leave anyone high and dry. But it is nice to be able to start picking the ideal clients and getting really clear on what an ideal client is.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like that is a level of comfort and confidence in who you are and what you bring to the table that you're okay with doing that. Because I know people that have been in practice. When I was in practice, it was the same thing. Opening my first clinical practice, and we would take anybody and everybody. It was kind of the same thing. And then finally, after a while, but after your bills start getting paid, then you could start being a little bit choosier about your clients, and even still to the point where getting that comfort level of, what, I can make a recommendation or a referral for one of my patients and not worry about whether they're going to come back or not. And get to that comfort level. So that's great. So what last little piece of advice would you have before we go out and tell people how they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? Rather than give advice, I want to tell you one more thing that makes our group, Rise CPA and Accountants, unique. Most corporate accounting jobs is full-time, and there's this choice between being a professional or being a mother, wife, student. And the women that I have, they get the best of both worlds. So I have this really special niche, and they work part-time so they can utilize their professionalism and you really contribute in a professional sense, and also have a flexible schedule so that they can make their family and college classes, whatever the situation they're in, make that the priority. And so I love to be able to support that healthy balance. And one of the things that also makes us unique is I really believe in giving back to yourself. And so we've got this self-care incentive that I set up right from the get-go, which is, based on how many hours you've been working, it's tied to a dollar amount. And then with that dollar amount, it's your incentive to spend on yourself. So there's just two rules. You've got to spend it on yourself, and you've got to send me an email and tell me why it made you happy. So especially as women, we tend to really think of others, just maybe a motherly instinct, think of others more than we do ourselves. So I really try to teach my ladies to take care of themselves. And that also makes us unique. So and parting advice, just make sure you love your job. So it's not, you don't think about it like a job, but it's a lifestyle, and make sure that you love what you do. And it doesn't always mean that it's exciting, but you can really, reframe it in a way that it can be something you love. And if it's not, also have the courage to look at something else, because life is too short to be doing something that doesn't feed your soul.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jen, thank you very much for coming on and sharing all your knowledge and wisdom that you've gotten over the years, and allowing us to be able to know where you're at and how you got there, and what a great mentor and leader that you are, and combining that with being a wife and a mother and everything else that goes along with it, and the resiliency that you've had to exercise to be able to get where you're at. So tell everybody real quick how to get a hold of you.
Yeah, thank you. You can email me, Jen, Jen, at riseaccountingllc.com, or you can visit the website, riseaccountingllc.com, and you can connect any way from there. On that website, you'll also see a link to the podcast, and I'd invite you to listen to a podcast if you'd like to be inspired and encouraged to do something more than you thought you were capable of. I really love to uplift and inspire others. So thank you again for having me on your show. I really appreciate the opportunity.
And thank you all for tuning in and watching, and our second episode, many more to come. And I strongly encourage you to contact Jen and get on her podcast as well. And she is a gracious and great host, and know that you'll be really excited when you get to do that. So if you have any desire to be able to come on this show, please contact me at info@drdavismcallister.com, or you can go on my website, drdavismcallister.com. And I would love to have you on as a co-host, and you can bring your own guests in as well. Have a great evening, and thank you all again.